What's going on, everybody? Good to see y'all. Had a little break, a hiatus, if you will, over the, Thanksgiving holiday or break or however you celebrate it. So we hope y'all enjoyed time, eating, but mostly watching football and being together with loved ones. And as always, I got my guy, Eric Foster, in the building. We ain't got to ask how he's doing. We already know he riding high, so I'm not going to even ask him.
Feeling like a
It's
champion today.
it's deep. I mean, we are deep in the sauce of college football, and as well as NFL, obviously, but just the drama is mounting, and everything is starting to reveal itself. All the projections. I'm so glad all the projections are not gonna be is starting to become not even relevant, if you will. I mean, we're coming up on championship weekend. We're gonna talk about that a little later. This past week revealed a lot of things for everyone, not just conference champions, but bowl eligible teams, things of that nature. So, but it's all good. We're here and it's good to see everybody. It's good to be back. We're going to jump right into it. So, as we always, trending topics, man, we're going to get into some things, talk about all this fighting going on, college football rankings. What are you mad about? Y'all know what I'm mad about. I'm still going to tell y'all. We're going to recap the Kansas Baylor game. Texas A&M, the Lone Star Showdown return to College Station for the first one of many to come. And Eric's going to talk about how he feels about Georgia part 2 in the SEC championship in Atlanta, which, yes, he did predict. And then we're going to get into our predictions and kind of, tally up our final win-loss scores. And, we're going to just probably talk about, well, not probably, we're going to talk about conference championship games that are coming up this weekend, man. So right into it, man. I mean, rivalry weekend for most, or for some, should I say, not most, I'll say for some, but the ones that headlined it were the big decision makers, not just maybe in the college football playoff, but Ohio State, Michigan had their own storyline, within it, with Coach Day and who else? I mean, it was I draw a blank that quick. Florida State really didn't have a storyline, but there was something to that. And the trend of all these games, it's a rivalry. It's good old fashioned. What rivalry game I was watching, and it talked about, they used the term good old fashioned hate, clean hate, but it's
Georgia
still a
Tech.
rivalry. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that one too. So yeah, exactly what it was. And besides that game, but like the fighting, I mean, Florida State with the flag, Coach Norvell ripping the flag and throwing it. Obviously, Ohio State and Michigan was one of the ones that headlined it. Gosh, who else? Can you think of any other games off the top of your head? I'm trying to think of last week that
South
there were.
Carolina Clemson.
Yes,
They got into a decent brawl. Um,
it
I
it was like it was like it was like the games were layered. It's like everybody was watching what the other team was doing. Like, they did it, we're gonna do it. It's kind of like
well, and I don't feel like, and it's all about, kind of what takes center stage and what doesn't, because I feel like there are fights not only in every rivalry game, but just about every big game, because everybody's is comes in on tilt. Everybody comes in with something to prove. Everybody comes in with this heightened sense of awareness. So everything you think about, who did Michigan play last? They like made them redo. Was it Michigan State made them redo how teams come in and out of the tunnel,
oh
right?
well, no, it
Um,
was, yes, because they had a fight or an
they had
assault.
a,
If
a
you're
real bad
Yeah,
fight.
yes,
So it's like it all depends on what the tone of the day is. And had Ohio State, Michigan not taken center stage in the morning game, and that kind of set the tone, we probably wouldn't have singled, the fighting or the aggression out the way that we did, because that's just normal. You can't tell me that this game is full of hate, or you're playing for state supremacy, or you're playing for all these important things, but then also, oh my God, I can't believe they're fighting, or they're not winning or losing with class, right? Those two
yeah,
things don't match. That's why I said, I think, reflecting specifically on the Ohio State Michigan thing, I'm good with it both ways. I'm good with, you don't want me to plant my flag? Don't win. Don't let me
and
win.
and that was kind of the catalyst
Yeah.
in the whole thing, you
You
know.
don't want me to plant my flag. Don't let me win.
And
And
I
if you
yeah,
think I'm going to let you plant your flag
yes,
and just
yes,
watch you, then you the damn
yeah,
fool too. So
and
I like it
yeah,
both ways.
I know, and it's hard because you never know what the future holds. And it's you could just say don't lose, but we all know that don't happen that way. And I remember it was, so funny when I was coaching at Louisiana Lafayette with Coach Hudspeth. I was a new guy there. The staff was already in place, but I remember just something standing out every time we, flew in and we got there the day before. Kids would walk the field, the stadium, and all that, and he would have, GAs go stand around the logo. It was like the visiting team. Like he just would not let the kids walk on the logo. I don't know if there was a previous incident. I don't know if something happened, and it was like, okay, that's respectable. I mean, you're gonna play there, but like, I don't know if it's the social media thing. I don't know if it's I don't know what I just don't know what it was that it kind of stood out a little more this year because the logos on the field is nothing new, and they wanted to flashback Baker Mayfield when Oklahoma beat Ohio State there and he did it, and it was a thing, and everybody has mixed feelings about Baker Mayfield, but I mean just in that instance, but I just thought that it was so much more like there's always something that sparks it in a rivalry game, like
Right.
a late hit or
And if the roles
dirty
were
hit or
reversed, it probably wouldn't have
yeah,
happened, right? Because Ohio State was
yeah,
expected to win.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if it goes business as usual, nothing probably happens. But
Mhm.
since Michigan had been told all week, you don't stand a chance, you're
Yeah.
a 23-point dog, you're this, that, and the other. Ohio State is written in the stars for them to go play Oregon again in the Big Ten championship. All these things, then yeah, there are some emotions around when you tell us you can't do it. Same thing. I watched firsthand a team that has won. Georgia's won two of the last four national championships, three of the
Mhm.
last five, something like that. I
Mhm.
watched a team that is very much arguably one or two in college football over the last 8 years celebrate in Austin like they had won a national championship after they beat Texas by 15. The game
Right.
wasn't particularly close down the wire, right? And they still celebrated like they had won a national championship. Why? Not because they were surprised to beat Texas. No, because they had spent all week hearing about they didn't have a chance. It wasn't this, it wasn't that. So yeah, it is heightened and it is that. But I'll tell you what I'm really looking at out of this week. So you have the kids that did it.
Mhm.
Then you have the guys that had class, and of course, it wasn't a national story.
Mhm.
How when Texas threw water bottles and all that, national
Yeah.
story for 2 weeks. When Sark was the only coach facing a similar scenario, he was literally hugging the chairman of the board of regents. So,
Mhm.
if for folks that don't understand the pecking order, it's the president of the board of regents, the president of the college, the AD, then the head coach, right? So his
Mhm.
boss is boss
Mhm.
is boss. And he
Mhm.
saw what the kids were doing, that they were headed towards the Aggie logo, and he cut that short to go make a beeline to the kids and say, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But and I give people respect, and you run your program however you want to run your program. But I guarantee you, if and when those roles are ever reversed and the Aggies are in Austin presented with the same opportunity, I want to see if they get that same.
Yeah.
And
Had that
that's
same
where
energy.
that's then
Yeah.
where it goes
Uh-huh.
to
Yeah.
another level, right? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's how we're playing this game now.
Yeah.
Okay, bet.
And like I say, it's just good for discussion, but I just thought it was just so much more. It was just so extra this year. And of course, the running joke, people said, well, if Ohio State would have fought like that during the game, they probably wouldn't have to go through that. It's so much stuff. And
100%.
it could be so brutal at times, man. But I just wanted to touch on that. And I mean, there were a few more we didn't mention, but like that kind of stood out, like I said, because there's the investigation that's still going on with kids being pepper sprayed by campus police, or was it the real police in Ann Arbor? Like, and these kids, now it's a safety thing. Now, this is how you mess up those rivalry traditions, if you will, like planting your flag or doing your dance on their side, because now it came to a point where now kids are getting hurt. You know, it's fighting
Right.
amongst each other. You pick those fights, peers, kids and kids, or young men, football players that train. Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna feel bad for you. Keep your helmet on, protect yourself. But like people getting pepper sprayed, that's something you can't control. I mean that, and I hadn't been in a situation like that, but I will give this story. When I was in high school, the last days of school were always wild, and I'm not from a bad
Everybody that
part.
had beef,
Yeah,
everybody that had
but
beef
I'm not
had to
from.
get it out.
Well, the campus police did that, getting kids in the hallway, and I was running. I remember running trying to get to class, and I remember like that tastes like pepper, and like you couldn't stop coughing. I'm like, and I just caught a little bit of it. I wasn't like, imagine getting directly sprayed, or I like that's crazy. That's why those kids would, I like, man, I just had like a glimpse of it. I can only imagine. So it's just, now that's the issue, and that opens Pandora box. That then it's like the parents of the kids, maybe they're gonna get involved. Oh, and then they want to sue. It's so much, and it's the kid from Ohio State went viral because he's grabbing his coach and he's telling him, they're not gonna do that to our logo, and you had your chance to defend the house and you didn't, and so but
And
we're
that's
not gonna
even
move.
that, pent up emotion. He's going to graduate and go
Yeah.
on to live a very lucrative life in the NFL, but he's going to have to graduate having never beat Michigan.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of pent up emotion and frustration. Anybody that has a younger sibling or has been a younger sibling, what that feels like, and it sucks.
Yeah. Not me, but yeah, I understand. I love my brother, but not me.
Well, we have Chris on here one day. We'll get some big brother, little brother stories, I'm sure.
So I wanted to touch on that, but let's move on to what we really want to talk about. And I know you had a lot to say. We talked briefly yesterday via text, but like the rankings came out, and that's not really the surprise because teams are winning, kind of how they've been winning. But what's really been the issue is the projected playoff scenarios, or the seeding, if you will, and that was kind of your first thing when you texted me, and I hadn't seen the new rankings of the show yet. And, so I heard, went to my phone and looked at it, and, I just, it's so much, man. And I'm gonna play. Did you see the clip or the sound bite with Coach McGuire when he talked about he the frustration of the lack of respect the Big 12 getting, and even the Big 12 commission.
Oh, I lied. I didn't see it, but it definitely came up in the group chat as a discussion, and it's
because you can look at it
stop.
both ways.
That's the dumbest argument I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Big 12 team from last year won the SEC. If Oregon wins the Big 10, that means a Pac-12 team won the Big 10. And if Arizona State, now whoever's playing, but Arizona State's got a chance to play in the Big 12 championship, so that means a Pac-12 team won the Big 12. And then if SMU wins the ACC, that means an American team won the ACC. So I think it's absolutely embarrassing what this football committee and we got to back up what we need to do on the field, so they get pissed off at me. But it's absolutely embarrassing what they're doing to this conference. And if they look at it that way, and they sit there and say, who's playing the best football, who's the most competitive conference, who week in and week out, what you see on tape, and how the games that you got to play, I think the Big 12 should be in. The Big 12 champion should be in the Final Four, right? And then I think it's absolutely ridiculous what is happening at that level with that committee. And just go back and think about that. I guess whenever you're a year away and you just change your patch on your jersey, that it actually means something, that you're in a different conference and that conference is all powerful. I mean, we all saw last night what the ACC did, to the team that's going into the championship of the SEC. I mean, Georgia Tech had played a great game. I just think we need to relook at this and quit looking at what patch and what logo it says on your jersey, what conference you're from, and look at the tape.
But
I think if you're pro Big 12, yes, you will say that makes sense. But if you're an outside looking in, you're like, Okay, you know what you spoke well for Texas. All you're doing is helping Texas' case. You know, I don't know if you're helping the Big 12.
Well, does it make? I was about to say, like, does it make sense because you've now had 3 teams go from the Big 12, you know, and 10 years ago, maybe we don't include A&M, but both Texas and Oklahoma, who very much had recent success in their last 3 to 5 years in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Both of them are not enjoying the same level of success in the SEC. So that kind of takes some win argument for me. If both teams were dominating in the SEC or playing it for the SEC championship, or even had an opportunity to play for an SEC championship, I got you. I'm following along. But both teams aren't experiencing that same level of success as they would, especially who they rounded out to be at the end of the season. If you put Oklahoma back 12 today, they're probably in Dallas this weekend.
I don't think that. Not with
they're probably look at their defense. Look at their defense. Look at what they're doing. They are Iowa State with a couple of more playmakers on offense. Depends on their health and when they get healthy.
But I'm saying disagree on that. But that's what I'm saying, because I'm talking about the way Oklahoma was in the SEC as far as like the injury, like the team that they had, not the team that they could have had, but the team that they had.
Right.
I think they're right where they. How many wins do they have?
They're 6. That was their 6th win because they would have had 7 had they beat LSU.
Yeah,
but I think in conference, I think in conference they went 2
They're 6 and 6. They're 6 and 6 and they're 2 and 6. Yes. So
correct.
I see. They're not in Dallas. They're probably better. They're probably higher in rankings or in conference play. But I don't think they're in Dallas.
So let me ask. So let me ask you this.
With the team that they had.
So with the team that they had, which of these teams are not in Dallas? Well, I'm going to talk about Oklahoma. Which of these teams are not in Dallas this weekend? Tennessee. They'd be in Dallas this weekend.
Yeah, Tennessee's a good team.
With the team they have.
Yeah.
Texas would be in Dallas with the team that they have.
Yeah.
South Carolina would probably be in Dallas with the team that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss would probably be in Dallas with the team that they have. You'll lose. Missouri would have a chance, but I doubt it. They would be in the same tiebreak. They'd be in the what? Everybody's 6 and 3, right? They'd probably be in that 6 and 3 mix, and it'll depend on the tiebreak. LSU would not be in Dallas. So of their 6 losses, there's only one team that we can solidly agree on would not have won the Big 12. So granted, so that's my logic, right? That Oklahoma has had some unfortunate luck with injuries, but also the unfortunate luck of playing murderer's row of the schedule.
But that was going to. That was to be expected. The scheduling part of it.
There aren't 6 teams in the Big 12 that's going to beat Oklahoma. The team this year,
I think BYU would have beat them. I think Arizona State would have beat them. I think K-State.
Now this is the same Oklahoma team that very much, with few exceptions, I think South Carolina being the one. Texas probably being the other, does very good. They stand up against the run pretty good, right? BYU's not throwing the ball well enough to beat them. Who's the second team you gave me?
But Arizona State.
Arizona State certainly ain't throwing the ball well enough to beat them. They're going to hold Scatterboo to under 100 yards. Does Arizona State still win? So I despise the position you've put me in. By the way, I think
I know, but I'm just saying, based off the way these teams have played, and I know it's hard to, hypothesize what it is because I'm a big believer in matchups. So a lot of times records don't. It's hard. Let's end this conversation. We'll be here all night. Let's just end it. Let's just talk about this projection because
we'll agree to disagree.
I got enough. I got enough going on. But
I think
so
my what we talked about, my whole issue with the projections, and I'll skip to it now, which probably would have been what I'm mad about again. You know, they're angling to give us Texas Georgia 3. Nobody
yeah,
wants to see that.
yeah, and that
Um,
that was the first thing that jumped out at me. If the projection follows, obviously, and you and I also talked, about how what 5 or 6 on down is pretty much set, and 1 through 5, if anything, it'd be just some
the
swapping, or there'd be
teams are
some
set.
swapping. Yeah,
The
yeah,
way
it'd be
it'll
just some
shift,
swapping. Yes,
the
yeah,
way it'll shift is not. And I think, and it is all about matchups, because like I told you, looking at the bracket, if this was the final bracket, I would rather be in the 5 spot than where Texas is in the 2 spot. Right.
yeah,
Even with that extra game.
yeah.
Right. I would much rather have Arizona State coming to Austin, and then all I gotta do is go beat Boise State to get
Yeah,
to the semis.
exactly.
No disrespect to them. But
Well,
again, in this world, it's
it is what it is, and we talk about it because you're not gonna make everybody happy, because a lot of times it's hard to it's relative, and it's
yes.
hard for someone that's a SEC lifer to respect the Mountain West, that Boise State is what they're 13-0 or 12-1 or whatever, to get any type of respect or be in the same conversation as even a Georgia
It's
who
not,
has
but I don't know that I don't know that I say, I don't know that I'm saying that, or I don't. Let me say it again. I don't know that I'm meaning to say that, because
Mhm.
there are some matchups, even as it's set today. Boise State's not the worst team in the field, right?
Yeah,
I would like Boise State's chances against Arizona State. I
I
would
like them
like
against
Boise State's
Penn State
chances.
too. Yeah, I don't think
I would like their chances against Indiana.
yeah, Penn
I
State's going to get
you
exposed.
say SMU's really fast, so
Yeah, they are.
but what do they do? How do they stand up against the run? Can
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
so and when you talk about matchups, like, what do you have to do to stop them? When you get past that and you're talking about Tennessee, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oregon, you're talking about teams that can shut down a Boise State run without having a blitz,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And
yeah,
that's a different game.
yeah.
And it's no disrespect to how good Boise State has been against the
Mhm.
competition that they've played, but it's a different game. And they
It
can't
is.
help it that they're outweighed, that they're
Yeah,
3 feet too short and
yeah,
200 pounds too light
yeah.
bulk.
And they did their part. They did their part.
Correct.
And I understand. I get all that, but looking at it, and it is about matchups. And you know what? I can respect it, and I can say, you know what? This was the criteria. They did what they had to do for the criteria to get to where they are. Now, you can say, the projections are just a projection or a prediction, but like you say, it's a matchup. You still don't know, because nobody saw TCU getting beat the way they did in the national championship a couple years ago. Nobody saw it.
Correct.
Nobody on this earth could have predicted that. Okay, so
Not that bad,
that
but
bad. That's what I'm saying. That
but
bad.
a
Not
but a
losing. Not
blowout.
losing.
But a blowout. I could have predicted a blowout. I don't predict losing by 50, but
Yeah, that's yeah. So and then
21 wouldn't have surprised me,
that wouldn't have surprised me. But I mean, in the
because
natty, like it's just
it's the same thing.
yeah. But that's what
And
that was my
TCU is
point.
much
Yeah.
closer to Georgia than Boise State
Yes.
is.
Yes. Agree. That's what I'm saying. So you just never know. That's my whole point. They fulfilled the criteria. They fulfilled what they needed to do. So now the matchup is the matchup. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. Same thing. Boise State. Oh God, I'm aging myself. 10, 15 years ago against Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, nobody gave them a chance. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it did go to
Yeah.
double overtime, but yet and still, and that great play that kind of started the end of the game plays besides Hail Marys was, epic, so like you got to just play the game, and you got to live with what the result is. And I think that is the committee's job, to just, make sure that the criteria is fulfilled, rather than saying, well, we know, yes, did Indiana, did Texas play a much harder schedule than Boise State? Yes, they did, based on the talent of the teams that were in said conference. But their conference is their conference. They ran the table, and that's what the criteria was. top 4 conference champions get the bye. 5th is, or it gets the 12th spot or however, so like it's
but in the long
that's
run,
the
I think
criteria.
this is better. In the long run, though, I think this is better for college football. I think it's having the desired effect because now, the Boise State can't cry big bad wolf. They can't cry.
Yeah.
We're treated unfairly. You got to buy.
Yeah.
You're within the rules. Now, when you go and it's time to put up,
exactly.
what will happen, and they will get to write the story.
They've got to quote unquote burn a year to see how the experiment works out, because teams like, pretty much just the Mountain West is gonna be under a little more of a microscope of as far as criticism and how can you put up against these other teams, because this is your best. This is your best. And if this is all your best, is this all y'all have to offer? Then we're gonna kind of probably have to put Power 4, and then it kind of goes back to that at large, you're the next one up type deal. If I don't know. I mean, they may keep it that way, but SMU solidified this up because they're not into the American Conference anymore. They're in the ACC, and that was kind of like, I guess that's kind of what Coach McGuire was alluding to, because he said Texas, and it didn't make sense, but like Texas is a Big 12 team in their first year in the SEC, so that's a contradiction. But I get what he's saying. I love Coach McGuire.
But they're not though, and
I know because they fulfilled the criteria to beat SEC teams to get to the SEC championship.
But here's the thing, and again, this is what I hate about when somebody can just grab a damn microphone and just say whatever with no pushback. And this is in any world, but it happens a lot in sports. And if someone in the know, like any one of those reporters that has covered the Big 12 with any length of time, has long seen, and Texas has talked, Sark, that's one of the things he's always talked about, was Texas stopped building to be a Big 12 team 3 years ago, right? Because in the Big 12, you don't have to be as big up front. In the Big 12, you don't have to, it was
getting the reputation of being a passing league, because it was getting
correct. You want to be faster on defense.
Mm-hmm.
You want faster skill players. You want some other things, but Texas long went away from and started focusing on the trenches, right? Knowing that now and I think it put them in danger, in some of those latter stages of the Big 12 of, putting games at risk, because you're getting ready for the SEC. So really what the truth of his argument was last year Texas was an SEC team in the Big 12. Right?
Based on how they configured
based on how they built their roster, based on how they recruit, because this, where not necessarily where you recruit your starters, because starters are kind of all the same across the board, but it's where do you recruit the depth? Where do you recruit, planning for certain other things? That's where the league you're in makes a difference, right? Am I planning for O-line depth and D-line depth because that's where that game's going to be won and lost? Or am I planning for wide receiver depth? Or am I planning for defensive back depth? Because you can't do it all. You got to pick and choose.
Exactly.
So, but I get it. I really do. And every coach should and is expected to get up there and advocate for their team and their conference. But at the end of the day, just win. If you win and the Big 12 didn't cannibalize itself, SEC faces the same problem.
Yeah.
Right? They cannibalize itself. But what's the difference? You have these out-of-conference matchups. We see Georgia and Clemson play at the beginning of the year. What happens? Georgia kicks their ass. And so then when Clemson goes on to win another league and Georgia's sitting there potentially, they're going to get in at 9-3. We played all these other guys and smoked them.
10-2. Yeah.
Or 10-3. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Georgia. Yeah. 10-2. Well, if they'll
get in at 10-3.
Yeah. I see where you're going.
I said what I said. Yeah. That wasn't a math. That wasn't an arithmetic error.
Yeah. Well, I said it just to make sure it wasn't,
Yeah.
I don't want to, and it's fine, and I mean, this is what we've kind of, been talking about all season and what it's led up to, and, all the projections about to really go out the window. And next Tuesday, they'll probably have obviously the highest, viewing on the highest rating of that show, because that's what it'll be for. And it'll be, locked down. And, so, I mean, it was fun. And, I think it gave, like we talked about, the bottom, I hate to use that term, the bottom half, or the quote unquote have-nots, at least more hope than they have had in the past. And obviously,
but what are we going to do? That's what I wonder about. And I really think it's going to end up being all for naught, because in mass, for us to get an unlikely champion, right? To get a Boise State to win, if you looking at that graphic, they've got to go beat Oregon. They've got to beat, or they will have had to, let's assume it goes chalk. They will have had to beat Penn State. They will have had to beat Oregon. They will have to beat the number 3 seed right now, which is SMU. But who's SMU playing the winner of?
SMU's playing the winner of Alabama, Notre Dame.
So probably Alabama, right? So they would have gone on a run against Penn State, Oregon, Alabama, and then probably Texas. Like, that is never in college football as it is today. Now, maybe, something like this is good long-term for Boise State, because maybe it elevates Boise State's program and they can recruit better and they can eventually get to a point to where they're playing for that, maybe. But this is a game of the haves and the have-nots, and it's always going to be, because you can't take if you could take a once in a generation player like you can in basketball, you give me a kid who can give me 50, and I got a chance every single night.
In basketball.
But no matter what position it is, I can't take just one kid that's going to give me a chance every single night, because it's dependent on so many other people. I can have a NFL starting quarterback, but if he's behind a terrible offensive line, it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, DJ Lagway, Lagway is
DJ
one
Lagway, Shador last year. Doesn't matter if I can't protect him. Same way, wide receiver, running back, you pick one. So that's why it's always going to be this way. But it's a good conversation, and this is what college football wanted. They wanted to. They're gunning for essentially the number 3 spot in the athletics landscape, potentially number 2. Nobody's going to catch the NFL for the time being, right? A lot of kids, we ain't never talked about that, but a lot of kids are not playing youth football no more. So that the NFL's in trouble long term. 15 years from now, I'm curious to see what it is and where it's at.
Well,
then you got the NBA on the
change.
rise. And then you're looking for that third tier of, is it college basketball? Is it college football? Is it all these other sports? So that's all this is to keep them in that conversation. But we're never going to get enough. We're never going to get a champion that's going to surprise people. If we look at that list right now, the most unlikely champion based on the road they have to travel is who? In Alabama?
Indiana.
Who's going to be surprised? Let's be real. In Alabama?
Oh, no. Nobody be surprised about Alabama. No,
exactly.
I said Indiana.
But I'm saying if I'm looking at somebody with the realistic possibility, Indiana's still in the have-not category.
Yeah. I thought you said who's unlikely. I thought you said who's unlikely to. That's what.
The most unlikely, the biggest shocker would be Boise State, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? Even though where they are. But I'm saying the least likely of the realistic teams is Alabama, probably.
Yeah, because they've done it so many times.
But you wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but
if Georgia did it, you wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
if Ohio State did it, you wouldn't be surprised. I'd be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised.
I'd be surprised by Penn State.
I would be surprised. Not because of the team, though. I'd be the same reason I'd be surprised with Ohio State. I don't think the coaching staff is right. I don't think the coaching staff is good enough to get them there. So from a James Franklin perspective, Drew Allard would have had to have played incredible.
Out of his self.
Out of his mind,
out of himself. No.
But that's where those are going to be the upsets.
Yeah.
Penn State over Oregon, right?
Yeah.
That's probably about the biggest level of upset in this world that we'll see. And Indiana has who in the first round?
Georgia.
I can't see that. I just can't. My mind can't.
Yeah.
So even that's probably
unless you can say they have a chance if Texas hurts all their starters in the SEC championship,
right?
Or
So even I'd say probably the most likely upset is because we don't have a lot of faith in their roster or their coaching staff is probably Arizona State over Penn State as things are today. Right. And we'd be surprised, but you're still in your head. You're like, okay, they're going to beat Boise State maybe and then get to the semis, or Boise State would love it if it's Arizona State because that's probably pretty fair.
Okay. And this and there's still so much. So then there's the question of once the bracket is solidified, Iowa State beats Arizona State. So now that's Iowa State versus possibly.
Now that's a game changer. Iowa State has a more realistic chance in the playoff than Arizona State does.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's crazy about it, So
but it starts to stack up because I think Iowa State's bye week was 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So 3, 4. Playoff game 1 is 5. Playoff game 2 is 6. Playoff game 3 is 7. Championship game is 8. Going to 8 games in a row without the right kind of depth. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Guys are banged up. You're playing. People don't understand, playing against Georgia or playing against Texas and then playing against Boise State, just from a physically what it does to your body, those are not the same thing.
Yeah.
One is the equivalent to falling off a bike and the other one's equivalent to a car wreck. It's not the same.
Many car wrecks. You know what I'm saying? Not just one
over the other. Game over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's fun, right? This conversation, we didn't plan for this. This conversation is fun, and this is what you want.
Because we talked about the shuffle. Yeah, we talked about the shuffle and the swap, because then you're gonna, like I said, I could care less about everybody being pleased about it because this is what it is. So what happens if Penn State beats Oregon? Obviously, they go into the conference championship spot for the bye, but now Oregon goes to what? 5, 6,
5. Depends on what happens.
Do they just swap? Because Penn State's at 5 now. Oregon's the best team in the country, rank-wise, 1. So do they just?
Well, it all depends on what happens. Because if Oregon loses and Texas wins, you slide Texas up. You slide it. Well, you don't have to slide them because it doesn't really matter. Because Boise State,
you're right.
Boise State could be ranked 10th and still go into that 4 spot.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah.
So probably 5. Oregon loses, they go to 5. Penn State loses, it depends on what happens. If Penn State loses and Texas loses, Texas goes to 5. Penn State goes to 6.
Yeah.
That's where it'll get interesting. And
I can't wait. That's what I can't wait. Not say I want to see teams
happen.
Yeah, I don't want to say I want to see teams lose, but the what ifs, what if Georgia beats Texas? What happens now? Georgia obviously goes into that spot. Are they 4? Are they 4? Are they 4 now because they're
no, they still are 3 because they're high. They'd be ranked higher than Boise State. Assuming Boise State win, they'd be higher than whatever that last conference champion is.
Yeah.
So then they go to 3.
Yeah. So
it'll create all these interesting matchups, and you'll get probably 2 first-round matchups that are dynamite and ratings blockbusters, which is what college football wanted anyway. Mm-hmm. They wanted games that are more compelling, and they'll get that. But why talking about Georgia, Texas, you got to go win this game now. You're in it, so you got to play it. Now, do you want to play another game at home or not? I want to go. You just go win it now.
Yeah, and you know, like I say, and then you know, the last one, who's SMU playing? Clemson, who's on the outside looking in. What if they lose? Now what happens?
Alabama's out.
It's and SMU just gets pushed down. They're not out. Clemson goes into that spot as conference champion. Now SMU just kind of
have to now because I can't punish a team that played for a conference championship in favor of a team that did not.
Yeah,
that's just not. That's a fundamental fairness thing.
Because then subconsciously you're like, but golly, the matchup, we know what Alabama would do to it, but the criteria and the rules. So like, there's so. Well,
I talked to an Alabama fan, and he kind of talked me into that because I was like, well, I don't know. You stack you guys up against SMU. I don't know. He's like, it's just a bad precedent. But Ward Manuel, the commit, what does he call him? The head of the college football playoff committee. He said two things that seem kind of contradictory. So I don't know. One, that teams who
got a way out
don't have any games left won't be reseeded. So essentially, he said if you're out of the field now and you don't have any games left, there's no real chance for you to move up and move into the field, regardless of what happens.
Okay.
But he also said that teams that lose conference games wouldn't be punished. And I don't think both of those. So the only way for example, the SMU example you just proposed, SMU loses. If I'm not going to punish them, then I've got to reseed a team that doesn't have any games left in Alabama. I've got to push Alabama out of the field to make room so that SMU is not punished. So he kind of said both, where there is a slim scenario or two different scenarios. I think I saw
crazy
that where those both could not be true. But I can't cry any. We were talking about that too. I can't cry any tears for a 3-loss team.
Yeah,
I can't.
And I ain't anyway. I got my own problems, so I don't care. I don't care what you got going on. I got my own problems.
Talk to me. Tell me about your problems.
Yeah, so it's gonna segue anyway into what I'm mad about. I'm so mad that our season is over. I'm so damn mad. And the team, they showed so much promise. You can give all these what if, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, but in the grand scheme of things, I thought the Kansas Jayhawks and Coach Leipold and the staff did a good job of showing their ability to fight and coach, back, at least get themselves back into the conversation of postseason play. Because I mean, we've done this all season, and you were giving me the jokes and giving me the when do you start building for next year? And I kept telling you, I said, never say die. Just you got to wait till we lose this game. And then we didn't lose that game, and then it kept. And I was there. I'll wait to hear what you're mad about. But I'm mad that our Jayhawk season is over because losing about 38, 39 seniors and some legendary kids, man. I mean, the Kansas all-time leading rusher is leaving. A quarterback is leaving who's second all-time in passing yards to Todd Reesing. You're losing a receiving core who made a name for themselves. You're losing good linebacker. You're losing two good cornerbacks who was arguably the best cornerback duo in the conference. I mean, just you're losing a lot where these kids made splashes in their own ways, man, and they took Kansas football to another level. So obviously the concern became we continue, and I have all the confidence in the world of that. But yeah, I'm mad it's over. What you mad about, E?
I'm mad that, well, like we talked about, they're angling for Texas, Georgia 3. I think that, and anything outside of the semis, which is the third round, essentially, I think it's just bad for college football because nobody wants to see that, especially when you have teams that are even still with 3 losses. Georgia's probably still a cut above. They're truly in the top half of the 12 teams that made it. So it's not fair to them. fair to us, regardless of who happens, that you've got to go play in such close proximity.
I think it'd be vetoed. I think it'd be vetoed. A
Well,
third one,
that's where
if that, yeah.
But if you look at how they're doing this, and they've kind of been a little consistent in this now for as long as it's been going on, they try to send signals throughout the year, right? So they've kind of had opportunities to reseed these teams or tell us that Georgia's not really the 7th best team, they're the 10th best team, or they're not really the 7th best team, they're the 4th best team. And they haven't done it. So now you're going to pull this big switcheroo on the last Tuesday? I doubt it. You're going to have to keep things pretty consistent. But it all depends on what their mandate is. Is it give the better teams the easiest and best pass to the end, or is it create as many blockbuster matchups as possible?
Yeah.
Because both of those things are separate, because in college basketball, they absolutely want to create as many blockbuster matchups as possible.
And that you mentioned that when we talked about it earlier about like how they
build Cinderellas.
Yeah.
I watched the thing on ESPN, like that George Mason team that went to the Final Four, I think they seeded them like 13th or something like that. They only had 2 losses. Like they were not the 43rd best team in the country. You know what I mean? Like they built that for that story. Steph Curry and so you look at so it's what is their mandate? Is it give us compelling stories and get us to the top of ESPN and podcasts and all this in terms of conversation, or is it fundamental fairness? And I don't know that both of those things are going to be.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. And you're right, because it won't be. But what's happening in Atlanta it's just 2 different teams, but it's been like that. It's been the Alabamas and the Georgias and vice versa or whatever. So that's nothing out of the ordinary. So it's just a good welcome to the SEC.
It is the first time a team from the state of Texas is represented in the SEC championship game.
Another shot. Boy,
ain't my fault. People had a 13-year lead and didn't do nothing with it. That ain't got nothing to do with us. We just doing what we supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. And shout out to my boy Donnie. He made sure he sent me a message. Hey, don't let your boy E go too hard on us. So we hadn't got to the game yet, but I'm just gonna recognize that he put it out. He put it out there, and I did it for you. So we're gonna move on, and I'm just gonna get right into it. And before I'm gonna go first because
this year I got a couple more shots at this. This is your last go around.
Yeah. See, I know you couldn't go the whole show without doing it, and because of it, one last time for the boys.
Go ahead.
Oh, baby, it's fine. So last week I had the privilege and honor to go to the game, Baylor versus Kansas. Was on the sideline, was able to see some old faces, see some people, man. Golly. I can go on and on, but got to see the team, shout out to my boys, Brendan McAnderson and Daryl Stuckey, my boy, Marcellus Jones, one of my old teammates. Saw some faces, man, saw some people. Good to see the administration and even some of the team docs that were there when I was there. And we started off good, man. Coming into this deal, we knew it was a win or go home deal. And, Baylor had been hot. They, you and I talked about it because it's close to home. And you said, what are they going to give it? These boys went on the streak. And, Kansas did a similar thing. And their streak was a little, I'm not comparing them, but beating Iowa State, beating Colorado, and beating, golly, it leaves me. Who was the third? BYU, sorry. Iowa State, BYU, then Colorado. Beating those guys. And, those are physical, especially BYU, man. That's going to be a physical game no matter what. And I don't know if our boys were tired. I don't know, it was 11 o'clock kick. There's no excuse because we jumped out on them and we had what we needed to win the game. We just didn't get it done. And that's the bottom line. We didn't do what we needed to do to get it done. It wasn't that it was a bunch of bad calls because refereeing the officiating has just been bad across the board in the conference. But it was just us not taking care of business, not cashing in. We missed field goals. third downs. We wasn't converted. And then, Baylor comes back and has 2 big splash plays where we can't cover the slot fade, and shout out to Monterey Baldwin, who's from the same hometown. He had a game for his senior day. I mean, went nuts, had catches and, did some great things. So shout out to him and his family. And, he balled out. But I mean, you knew the formation after they did it the first time, and they went back to it a couple of times. Luckily we stopped it and we adjusted and put a true freshman corner out there who the future is bright for this kid. So can't wait to see him in the offseason and the spring ball. But we just, and then their running game, Bryson Washington, I think is his game. I wouldn't trade Devin Neal for anyone, but he put on a clinic. He ran hard, he ran physical, and just wore our guys down. And obviously Devin Neal did his thing, man. And we just didn't get the job done. But it would have been fun, man, to be there to see that streak continue and to get a bowl berth and become bowl eligible. And we just didn't get it done. So, hats off to those seniors, man. I had a chance to, briefly talk with Devin Neal and Jalen Daniels, and outstanding kids, man, respectable young men, after they just lost the game, took time to talk and, talk to a couple of the coaches and just, I love my school and I can be biased, but like, no one can argue across the country or across the college football world that Kansas has been night and day in the last 2-3 years. And they, in what the program or the coaches have done in the program and the upward trajectory that they're heading in and, the new facilities and, they're getting there. It took us a while. And I love what Coach Leipold's doing. We're going to get there. It didn't go, nobody projected this. And it's so funny because you looked at what the projection was in the Big 12. And I think Kansas was picked to finish second or third in the Big 12, or even that top 4, I think, are like in the middle to the bottom 4. And the bottom 4 that was projected, like Arizona State was projected to finish last in the Big 12, and they're playing for the Big 12 championship. So that just goes, projections mean nothing, matchups are everything. And that's just the way it is, So obviously you're going to project things because of what you have coming back, what you lose, this and that. But before I sign off for the last time talking about my Jayhawks for this season, I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything or anyone. But man, what a ride. I don't care. It's our show. If I want to bring them back up next week, I'll bring them back up next week. So, yeah. So, I mean, they took a hard one. And, like I said, they had, just got started a little too late, and what I love or what I was pleased to hear or see is the contrast or the difference in the way Kansas football was being talked about nationwide, ESPN Game Day, things of that nature. When, they lose, status quo, whatever, this and that. But, even through the disappointing season they were having, the analysts and people were still like, you got to watch this team. They're the best, when I say they're the best 2 and 4 team, or they're the best 3. And, but then they go off and knock off a legit Colorado team who was in contention for the Big 12 championship, knock off Iowa State, who was playing in the Big 12 championship, and beat BYU, who everybody thought was going to run the table. And all of a sudden in Provo, they just doing what they do. They're undefeated. They were in the top 10. So there are some highlights, and I don't want it to sound like, this loser's cry of, this is why we're not. But if you got eyes and you know ball, losing 5 games by 1 score or less, on top of beating the teams that nobody thought you would beat, going into it with the record that you had, I mean, it was a never say die, man. I just want to shout out everybody in Lawrence, man. The best is yet to come.
So the final question I have, looking back on now that there's a cap on the season, did you all overperform last year or underperform this year?
The umbrella statement would be underperformed this year. That's the umbrella statement, but at the same time, like I say, you and I can look at those 4 or 5 games that were 1 score because they were 1 play. It literally 1 play that turned the whole game. And it was a turnover. It was a turnover at a crucial time that we didn't get the ball back, So I think that's bad ball on us, on whoever I'm not blaming anyone, but those are the things that cost us those games. I mean, it was a funny stat it was posted on the Just Talking Ball page. Somebody put like Kansas could be 9-2 right now if they didn't play like the 4th quarter in 5 games, you know what I'm saying? And like they were in what game can you say that Kansas got blown out. Like they didn't get blown out.
None that come to mind, but I think
TCU was the only game that was like, what in the hell? You know what I'm saying? But besides that, like, you know, and I mean, let's just pull it up real quick.
It was, how are certain teams going to perform when they are the hunted? And I can't express people that don't spend, you know, a significant amount of time around sports. The mindset and the preparation as the hunter versus the hunted is so wildly different that it literally determines outcomes of games, because in those tight one-score games, some of those teams had that Kansas game circled. They prepped real hard. And this is the team
UNLV being one of them.
Expected to end up being, you know, a conference champion or what have you, or in that mix. And this could be a season-defining win for us. And they come ready. Was, you know, like Deion Sanders talked about with Colorado, you know, do you come into the year intoxicated with success and thinking that certain thing? As a Longhorn fan, I can certainly tell you that is real, where you come into a year and you think shit's just going to be handed to you because of who you are and what you did last year or what you did in the past.
It's rampant amongst all of y'all.
So, well, welcome to the club.
Yeah,
you know,
you're right. And you know, our first audition went well. We're gonna come back again. You know, and I'm not gonna harp on it, but I'm gonna tell you, like you say. So look at this: Illinois game 17-23, UNLV game 20-23, West Virginia 28-32. Now TCU 38-27. Okay, that's the one I said. Yeah, we lost. Arizona State 31-35. Kansas State 29-27. And then Baylor was the other game that was those two games.
When you have that many, this goes back to that age-old saying, you know, you are what your record says you are, and you are who they say you are, because what that screams to me is Kansas cannot finish. This year. That was a problem. They couldn't.
That is the bottom line. That is the bottom line. But what I say, on the other side, the silver lining is that enough people see what they're building, and they're still saying, "Hey, if this didn't happen, because they're good enough." It's not like Kansas was getting by, like that team got in their own way or they got lucky. Like it was an expectation of Kansas to do certain things, and they're saying, if these one or two things didn't happen, Kansas is in the conversation of, you know, in this bracket, like Arizona State or, you know, what have you, or how BYU was in the projection most of the year, on at least until they started doing the, you know, the rankings. So, but nevertheless, we're bowing out. We're done. Early National Signing Day was today. You know, we got some recruits. We got a couple, you know, 4-star. That's good. Rock chalk, baby. So tell me about the Lone Star Shootout.
Well, before we get to that, since you mentioned National Signing Day, it can't relate to the no 5-star thing. That's crazy.
I said I don't think that's just December. That's just December.
Even if so, only one team can have the #1 recruiting class in the country, and according to ESPN and 247 Sports and most other qualified rank on 3, it's the Texas Longhorns. So
congratulations.
The rich get richer. You start to worry about
5-stars don't go until February anyway. They like to be dramatic in how they do, you know.
No,
unless they're going to be on campus.
Well, because they changed the I thought they took that one out.
I thought they were projecting to do it the next year.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think it's going to be
we don't usually have a problem. Most kids say they're coming to Texas. Come on. It's the other guys that we maybe sometimes worry about
the game.
But anyways, I was saying this. We start to worry about the biggest thing this week wasn't Texas A&M, you know, Texas A&M or Texas Georgia. It was really about, are we getting to that level of success where now you're starting to worry about losing assistant coaches. Now you're starting to worry about losing support staff, losing some of those things that underpin the success of the program. And that's real. You know, if you don't have Monkey Gate, you know, we probably would have lost our special teams coach maybe 2 years ago. It's probably time. Our defense coordinator doesn't want to be a head coach, so luckily we're pretty solid there. But you start to worry about some of those things, and
we understand. You remember we lost our OC last year because of success. So yeah, just go ahead, continue on. Yeah.
Okay, not the same, but I understand. Not the same, but I understand.
Go Georgia. Go Georgia.
Anyways, we'll talk. I'm used to that anyway. You think the whole world being against us is something new? Please. That's the default. That's the default position. We're more comfortable that way anyway. That's why we're 10-0 on the road. No, this game honestly is going to sound cocky or egotistical, but you and I have had plenty of conversations both early in the year and kind of leading up to this game. This game went about as I expected it to. A rivalry in the sense of how you feel about one another. That's it. It's not rivalry in terms of statistics. It's not rivalry in terms of wins and losses. It's not rivalries in terms of conference championships, national championships, players of the year, coaches of the year. No measurable statistic is this truly a rivalry, other than how we feel about one another. So if I'm wrong, tell me where I'm wrong.
I'm not. It's just
I will gracefully apologize.
It's a shame that you can speak with such conviction about it, because where is the argument? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's not there. And you know what's crazy? It's not there in football, and football is probably the closest opportunity of all the sports. Honestly, you start expanding into other sports. These two programs are not competitive when it comes to one another. But Texas dominated the game. If not for a tipped pass, A&M does not score.
Yeah, exactly right.
You probably, if the game's closer and Sark maybe wanted to be a little more aggressive if everybody's healthy, playing without I hadn't seen it, but A&M at least was to the level of, some of our injuries did start to rear their head. Isaiah Bond not being healthy really put a lid on what we were able to do in the vertical game. So I think we only had 1 or 2 passes that we completed that really kind of stretched the field. So would like to see him get healthy. Kelvin Banks, our first round tackle, went down, but the backup Trevor Gooseby came in and literally was the highest rated offensive lineman in all of last week. So it shows you some things about the depth and about the program. It does, but yeah, you look at it, 26 first downs to 15, 460 total yards to 250. Rushing yards, they gave up 250 on the ground. You're not going to be anybody like that. Giving up 250 on the ground.
Yeah, and you're right. And like say, not having a dog in the fight. I really thought, just because of the setup and the way A&M had been playing, and because this rivalry was so sought after, we've been hungering for, especially us being Texans. Like, that's a big time deal. A&M was good. They had them in College Station. Now Texas obviously is good, and I knew matchups again. You and I talked about it. Talked about that quarterback, how he could use his legs, he could throw the ball. But in my mind, I knew he had to play well, and not just to say cliche, not throwing good balls, but he had to play well as far as like making guys miss, scoring with his legs on top of throwing the ball, because Texas defense is so fast, and I knew that would just neutralize what A&M's wild card was on offense, and that was the quarterback. So I knew once
I told you I wasn't particularly worried about the running quarterback because we're so fast.
Yeah.
Both our linebackers,
and
4 guys.
It's crazy. It is crazy. Texas, and I hate to say it because of you, but like Texas is good, man. I mean, they're good, and
number 1 defense in the country. Like and it's not a hyperbole. And as a fan, I'm learning this. I talk a big game, but you know me, I'm super superstitious. I'm super weary, and I'm very much, respect your opponent. Don't overlook anybody. In my real personality, that's very much who I am. So it's been really hard for me this year to walk into our greatness in terms of we are the number one defense in the country. So you should expect performances like this, where you go on the road against your biggest haters, if you will. I'm going to get away from calling them rivals, because I think that's disrespectful to Oklahoma. That's disrespectful to teams that hold up their end and do truly make things right.
So your only rivals now, Oklahoma and Arkansas?
Oh, Arkansas, I don't even know fits into that category on the grand scheme of things. Historically, Arkansas held up their end, and they beat a bad Texas team in Sark's first year. But outside of that, I don't know that that's fair either. But right now, in terms of recent history, teams because for me, rivalries, you throw the records out, you throw the talent out. I can give you direct examples in the last 6 years of a bad Oklahoma team beating a really good Texas team, a really bad Texas team beating a really good Oklahoma team. Those are the things that make it a rivalry. But when you have games like this that are, I'm trying to be measured in how I say this, but this is going to be this was A&M's best shot in at least the next 3 years. This is their best shot. This was their best shot in the last 3 years.
That lends to the old the Coach Prime quote last year. He said, "Get me now. You better get me now." And they didn't get him now.
It's funny because even as measured as he is, even he kind of like threw some shots and was like, I was expecting more. And I was, he's like, we heard about this crowd and all this and all that, and I was expecting more. Now, Texas is the reason why you come out and you go 17-0 on them, and you take the wind out of the stadium a bit, so they don't get to be that, whatever they call it, 12th cheerleader, whatever they got.
I don't know what's going on with that. I'm gonna leave that alone.
Well, what's the biggest joke in college football? TU's football schedule. Army. I got a little story for you, Ags. Well, one day, in that godforsaken, tree-hugging, way too weird town of Austin, Texas, Daddy's money, never known real labor boys. They came from a long bloodline of burnt orange T-sips who went down to Texas University to sip tea instead of going to war with the real men down in Aggieland during World War II. And I promise you, they would never put themselves in a position to be pushed to the limit with something like the Fighting Texas Aggie Corps of Cadets. That no-good school in Austin, well, it's just a glorified homeless shelter.
We're gonna put it on there.
They're terrible. And it's funny, and they talk about, it's so funny when you're connected and you know so many people that are intertwined between the fan bases, and you see like things from message boards and all kind of things, and people are like I saw this one post, it's like, let's pull a Texas on them and let's hire Sark away, and it's like, what? Like, no kids. There are somebody charted this, and it's probably only half true, but even half true, the stat is wild. But it's something like only 30% of Texas A&M's current roster had offers from Texas.
Oh wow, that's a good stat though. That's that.
90% of Texas's roster had offers from Texas A&M. So when it's like that, but if you look at, again, Texas versus an Oklahoma, much more balanced. I still think Texas even had the edge, but it was so much closer. When you look at that, it's not hard to see why there's a difference in the teams and the atmosphere. It's good for college football that this game is played, and they'll win one someday. They will. That's just life.
Rivalry, A&M. Come on back to the Big 12, boys.
We ain't taking no pay cut to get the same trophy. That's crazy. No thanks.
Like I say, I'm gonna keep saying it. I just hate that the Big 12 had to change. But anyway.
All right, we preview next week's games. Give me your preview.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Eric's trying to rush me off because he wants to go watch Texas basketball. You see how you do me? You see when people when the stuff finally starts to separate. My season's over. All right, I'm done talking to you. Let's go.
I was trying to rush you into giving me Kansas's preview for the next week. What do y'all got next week? That's really what I was rushing toward. I was rushing toward that.
I don't know. No, okay. So yeah, so let's go into it. It's fine. I'll respect it. So we didn't have a show last week. Obviously, we're having a holiday break, but we did do our picks, and this is how we fared. This is 2 weeks in a row. I've beaten Eric. I guess they have more conference teams, so I guess he has an argument. We both won 7 games, or we both picked 7 winners, if you will. So, my only loss came from my Jayhawks, which is fine, ride or die. But some of Eric's picks, he talked about. I told him, man, don't ever pick Missouri. Missouri messed some stuff up for you. You pick against it, you pick, but Missouri ended up beating Arkansas, the Kentucky Louisville game. I mean, Oklahoma LSU, I think, was his biggest miss.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know why he thought Oklahoma would beat LSU, but nevertheless, so we're actually ending the season as is right here. And so Eric went 58-24 overall. You could do the math percentage wise, and and I went 48-27. It's fine. It's fine. I'm if we have 6 of those games, I'm still below, but like Kansas is some of those losses that I wrote with Kansas no matter what. So it's fine. But looking forward to next week, let's talk about it real quick. Conference championship weekend, which is very exciting. And just tell me, you ain't got to give me a score, but tell me who you like in each game.
I when we talked about it earlier in the week, I was feeling Penn State. Or looking at like recruiting today, and Oregon's got it rolling, man. And we talk about Texas and their money and how Oregon is quickly cementing themselves amongst the top of college football for some time. So I'm going to bet on Dan Lanning and take the Oregon Ducks. I'm obviously going to take.
I think they're just better. I think they're just better.
They are
better. Yeah.
I think there's something in the likelihood of Penn State making it into this game was relatively low compared to an Indiana making it in or an Ohio State making it in. So I want to say they had the breakdown done, but I want to say of those 2 teams, Penn State is the one they were probably paying attention to the least. So as much as it could be a scramble, that's probably the one they probably are scrambling to do a couple more layers. Penn State didn't have anything to lose. They knew if they got in, it would be Oregon. So they've probably been working on this one for a little bit longer.
And they had to rely on some other people to lose for them to get in. So
correct. But you do the work because you don't got nothing else to do. So they're probably a little bit better poised from a game plan perspective than maybe an Oregon is, but Oregon's just more talented. You're absolutely right about that. Oregon's just more talented. So I got Oregon close. Obviously betting on the Texas Longhorns.
And no matter what, it's hard. As much as I want to go for Georgia, it's hard to beat a good team twice in the same year. So,
and that's why I don't want this a third time because I don't know. Anything can happen.
Unless Texas pissed down both legs,
we just don't. There's a world where we continue to see, one emerging trend. Texas turns the ball over too much. And it's in the most costly ways possible on our plus side of the field or on their plus side of the field, or like last week in a way that they score. And that's just a disaster. You can't give Georgia points on defense. Mm-hmm. You can't give their average offense the ball in plus territory. So If we don't do those two things, we're better running the ball. We're better getting to the passer today than we were when we played them the first time. So
27-24 Texas.
Do those things carry forward. Honestly, whoever wins, honestly, I don't think that it'll be close. I think this is going to be one of those impose your will kind of games. And I think it'll be double digits. I think it'll be 10 plus. Whoever wins, I happen to believe it'll be Texas. But if Georgia won, I don't think it'd be close because they would have imposed their will either defensively, like they did in Austin, or offensively, they may find it, which they occasionally do. So they may find it and impose their will that way in the vertical game. Don't know. I like our chances though. Yeah. Clemson SMU. It's hard to bet against Clemson. Just seeing
because they've been there so
you seen what you've seen in the last 8 years. It's kind of like what reason do you have to doubt them? SMU's a new kid on the block. Do the lights get real bright? Everything's new. Everything's a first. Clemson, they'd stay in the same hotel, same room, same bed. This is all routine.
Yeah, you're right.
The word.
You're right.
This is all routine for them.
I agree.
So I think they have the edge.
Yeah, I agree.
Again,
Iowa State, Arizona State.
I'm a big Matt Campbell guy. I've seen Iowa State do things, but I've also seen Iowa State getting big and not show up. I just think
it's against a certain type of team.
Yeah, I think they're better. Yeah, I think they're better poised. They're going to keep everything in front of them. So I just don't expect Arizona to get any big plays, even if Scatterboo breaks. Iowa State's going to play that 3 high safety look. So even a big run is going to get bottled up at 10 yards.
Because he's not a breakaway go home.
So can they score on extended drives? I haven't watched them enough to say that. I'm just going to bet on the stalwart, which in this scenario is Iowa State.
I agree. I'll take that. I'm with Iowa State too.
UNLV, Boise State. Man, I'm
going with Boise State because UNLV beat Kansas. And they got the best running back.
But that's a better running back. But that's a better look for Kansas. That you lose.
You're right.
I don't know.
Right. But
now this is the story.
This
is the story of Saturday, right? These last 4 games, because the ACC, the winner is in, the loser is either out or the last team in. If it's SMU, if Clemson loses, they're out, period.
Yeah.
Only the winner of the Big 12 championship game is in.
Only the winner of the Mountain West game is in.
Well, I don't even know if it's the winner because then it becomes Boise State is the clear runaway because they're 12th in the country right now or wherever they are.
Yeah, are they?
They're tops in the country. They're whatever the ranking is.
But
if Boise State loses,
but that's what I'm saying.
Right?
It'll drop them probably ranking wise, and they won't be a conference champion.
Correct. So if Boise State loses, they're out.
They're out. That's what I'm saying.
But there's no guarantee if UNLV wins that UNLV would be in. It could be Army.
Oh.
So of those 4 teams, whoever's the highest ranked conference champion is the one that goes. So Army's at 24. UNLV is at 20. So that answers the question. Boise State is 10th. So
Boise State is 10.
So it's the Mount. So unfortunately, Army's going to be on the outside looking in. So that's the game, right? In the Mountain West champion is going.
Pretty good. I'm going with Boise.
I'll watch. It'll make me watch a game I otherwise would not have.
Oh yeah.
So I'll watch.
Yeah, and the last one, American Conference.
Yeah, I'm gonna go America. I'm gonna go Army.
And Tulane is favorite heavily, but I'm with you. I'm going with Army too on it. I'm going with Army. And that's
my gut says UNLV. By the way, I think I was going to take Boise State, but I think I'm going to take UNLV.
Yeah, well, I'm going with Boise. That was another thing too. I don't want to go backwards before we
Friday. We don't even got to wait. I love it.
that's what jinxed us too. Kansas had been underdogs the last 3 weeks, and then they became favorites against the Baylor game. And I was like, no.
You're like, no.
They're superstitious. That's the same. I was thinking the same thing, so, but anyway, man, but it
should be a good weekend, man. All the games are projected to be close.
It is. It's going to be a fun championship weekend. This is what it's all about, man. This signifies Christmas and bowl season's approaching, and it's going to be a different look and feel because of the bracket. And, I don't know what the outside bowls would look like, but it's ball, so that was it, man. We appreciate
game money ready.
Nobody want to tell Eric made a quick trip to Vegas because he couldn't get into College Station, so he went and watched it. He went and watched it in Vegas and cleaned up. Nah, but we appreciate y'all, man.
There's a trailer park down the street. I didn't have to go to College Station.
Oh. He won't let up. So I'm gonna end it for y'all, A&M, man. But we appreciate y'all, man. We will be back for the conference championship weekend to talk about some games. That's going to be a big week because it's definitely going to have the final shape of what the first college football playoff bracket will look like, and it'll be etched in stone, as you say. And then we'll be able to talk about matchups and everything. So, man, we appreciate y'all. We're out of here, man. As always, rock chalk to the day I die.
Praise the Lord and hook 'em horns.
All right, see y'all.
Hey, see y'all from Texas.